we bounced from what we were doing to becoming product developers for an app. Mind you, we never did that before. But
Sweet.
we became product developers for an app and spent 10 months developing an app. And I was able not just to cover the salaries of the entire team, but we were able to start putting away money for a future investment.
All righty, welcome back to another episode of the Sharice Williams Show. I am so excited, you guys, to bring to you this amazing guest, you guys, none other than Ty Richardson. And, let me just introduce him very quickly, if I can just do some justice to his introduction. But Ty Richardson is, let's just start off with an extraordinary strategist, extraordinary business strategist. He is Trinidadian-American. I love that. He has, when I tell you, he has such an extensive and comprehensive list of accomplishments. It's absolutely incredible. But what I will say about Ty, it just having worked with him over the last, I'm going to say 3 years or so, is when I tell you the way his mind works is so brilliant. When I say master strategist, I don't even know if that even really truly encompasses it. When I tell you just ideas off the top of his head, is just amazing. And I will say that Dr. Ty is the Vice President of Membership for the Advanced Innovation Society, which is a community of strategic collaborators. In this role, Dr. Ty has oversight of member growth, member engagement, operations, and community development, which includes a chapter leader program and event experiences worldwide. And so just in that title alone, you guys can certainly understand why I'm excited about us talking about increasing your visibility through collaboration. So Ty, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited that you're here as well. So increasing your visibility through collaborations. Why is this important?
So, when you think about building a business, you want to be very lean and efficient with your time. And collaborations are the most efficient way to grow and scale any business. Let's talk about collaborations. So what collaborations are, it's an opportunity for you to say, okay, I do this really well. I want to work with this person who either does this really well or does something complementary to it so that we can synergize. Once we synergize, I have just increased my audience by that person's audience size. Right? So strategic collaborations allow you to partner with other individuals who've done a good job or are doing a good job in their space that could be parallel or complementary to yours, and gives you an audience that you couldn't or don't have right now. And so you get to shine and show people your zone of genius that wouldn't ordinarily have been able to access you with your capacity. Now, it doesn't have to be that you're a brand new startup or you're an early stage person and you're tapping into a much bigger audience. You could both be at big audience size, or you could both be starting out. It doesn't matter. When we think of strategic collaborations, the first and the most obvious example would be the airlines, right? American Airlines, British Airways, they both fly London to New York, New York to London. But sometimes you may buy a ticket on American Airlines, but sit on a British Airways plane. Similarly, you may buy a ticket on British Airways and sit on an American Airlines plane. Either way, they, what we call in the airline industry, code share, but it's a strategic collaboration. It's sharing resources, increasing audience capacity, serving in an optimal and efficient way, and growing revenue.
And the last part, and growing revenue, right? Because at the end of the day, everything that we do want to make sure that it ties directly into, in some way, shape, or form, increasing our revenue, right? Mm-hmm. And I've got to give you credit, Ty, because going back to one of my best selling offers, out of all my offers, one of my best-selling offers was actually something that you recommended, and it was around strategic partnerships, and that is the Prosperous Practitioner Program. And so many of you that are listening, you guys are familiar. You may have even been, you might be a current student or perhaps an alumni of the Prosperous Practitioner Program that I co-facilitate with Dr. Orlando Wells. And it's exactly what you said, right? I was doing the business coaching side. He's, really has a passion for teaching the functional medicine piece. He had an audience, I had an audience. It just made sense that we collaborated and, again, exponentially grew not just our audience, our reach, our impact, and our revenue. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Ty.
And what you're seeing now in today's market is collaborations are not even obvious collaborations. You're seeing, people doing collabs that would ordinarily have never been thought about. I think that there's a collab with a car and a luxury brand. There's a collab with hotels and like Red Bull. So other companies are coming together and they're saying, okay, we have synergies, or we have something that we can create together. I think that there's a lipstick that's designed after some, a color car like Ferrari. Like so people are getting really creative. With why? Because of this concept of disrupting the market, disrupting your feed. If you're an online entrepreneur, if you're somebody who's doing digital marketing day in and day out, the concept of standing out is, how do you put something on your feed that people stop scrolling? Right. How do you stop the scroll?
Absolutely.
Right? And so what you have to do is you have to be really innovative and powerful when you come out, and collabs are a way to do that, to bring in something that people wouldn't ordinarily think. Maybe it's medicine and finance. Maybe it's something a little bit
health
more
and wealth. Health and wealth.
There you go. But stopping the scroll and giving people something that they have to put down their fork or their pen to think about.
Right. I love that. And so staying in this lane, the majority of this listenership are nurses and nurse practitioners, and even some physicians that either currently have a functional medicine or holistic health business, or are aspiring to. So that being said, what are some of the things that kind of come top of mind? You talk about disrupting. Some of the things that come top of mind in terms of, maybe we'll go with some likely collabs and then some maybe unlikely collabs. What comes to mind?
Yeah. So, depending on the market you're serving, you have a lot of people who are burnt out. You have a lot of people who are in the baby boomer generation. You have a lot of people who are thinking about what are they going to do next. And so that whole concept of, focusing on your wealth, having peace of mind, self-care, making sure that people are understanding what are the different factors, data analytics as well, like understanding what are the metrics that indicate success or failure with managing your health. What are the things you can do to bring those things under control? So collabs in any of that obvious space to say, okay, how do you take care of yourself as you get deeper into business, as you get older, as your kids become adults, as you want to live a more stress-free life? What are some different partnerships and collabs you can do in that space to give people sort of that look towards the end, right? It's a big market. Baby boomer market is a big market.
Huge.
The younger generation, they have a little bit more sensitivity to, making sure that they sleep well and making sure that they understand, when they're being stressed out or not, right? The older generation, they lived with stress. They now get to a point where they got to ease out of it. And so I think obvious collabs in those scenarios would be, looking and finding partnerships with, sleep studies, partnerships with people who help you with nutritionists, people who, and not just regular nutritionists, but people who work with older generations, partnerships with AARP, partnerships with, a lot of folks who are kind of figuring out how to use self-care.
Yeah.
There's a growing trend on these med spas. Understanding, how does a med spa play into what you do as a holistic nurse, as a nurse practitioner. So that's the obvious one. The unobvious one would be travel. In the nursing industry, you typically have, people, travel nurses, but the consumer travels. Like a big business is bachelor parties. A lot of people are doing destination weddings.
Yeah.
Traveling now is part of their experience, their different celebrations that they're taking on. So putting some sort of health element into things you think about when you travel. I know that I've done it, right? I go on a trip and it's a lot of drinking and imbibement, right? But the next day you feel really crappy. Right. What could I have done before I started that night out?
Dehydration, things like that. Yeah.
Exactly. What do you take with you to prepare? So that concept of travel. Another concept too, not so obvious, would be kids and nutrition, right? We know that kids struggle to eat. We know that there's a lot of things that they don't eat when they're growing up and becoming informative years. How do we educate them? How do we use different things to supplement their diet, supplement their nutrition plan? Maybe it's not even the diet. How do we bring in some holistic tools that we can start, linking with the kids at an earlier stage to where the parents are who you're selling to, but the outcome is for the kids. And
Right.
if you do a good job of really encompassing that whole family unit, longevity, nutrition, health, and wellness balance, you have that kid for life. You have a longer relationship with that parent and that family. So looking at kids as an avatar and how do you infuse health, wellness, nutrition at an early age through the parent is also, a good opportunity to look at. And there are tons of them, right? I mean, you can explore any two disparate things and help somebody figure out, okay, how do I make a collab out of this?
Right. I love that. Love that. And those examples were just really extraordinary examples because it really challenges us to kind of think outside the box. But when you say it, it's like, oh, of course that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. That's that timeline, that tie brain. I love it. Now, collaborations. And so if someone, let's go with, and we'll do it two ways again. Let's go with the newer entrepreneur. Maybe they have a brick and mortar. Maybe they have they're a nurse practitioner. They have a brick and mortar. They are now shifting or starting to incorporate a more of a online holistic health practice, right? So they have this hybrid thing going on. Where would you say is a really great place to start for them in terms of looking for collaborations that are probably already like in their ecosystem?
Yeah, and that's exactly it, Cherise. The collabs are in their ecosystem, right? And so, what I would do for a new nurse practitioner who's coming out, I would go through my database, my contact list, and see who's already in there, and then it's really about workshopping with them. Who's what's an opportunity for us to work together. So what you want to do is you want to look at criteria, right? Does this person have an audience that I want? Does this person engage their audience? Is it an active audience?
Right.
Is this person growing and profitable? Because the last thing you want to do is just do a collab for the sake of collaborating, right?
Right.
So you want to make sure. So let's say you start with your list, then you identify on your list these factors, these criteria, the audience that you want to attach to. Is it an engaged audience? And then is there revenue growth potential in there? And then based on that criteria, it doesn't matter what the person does. If the person is in a business that meets those factors, then you want to workshop with them. Okay, what can we come up with together? And this is where, it's somebody who's selling ice cream or somebody who, actually already practices functional medicine. You can figure out a solution that ties in. And then it's about making sure that there's mutual benefit. So
That's exactly what I was going to mention. Yes.
Exactly. It's not just about going in and saying, okay, I can sell my services to your audience. It's how can you build a joint venture, a product, a collaboration that they benefit from and that you benefit from? Because the risk you run is that you can do a collaboration with somebody and they can be all on board. But if they aren't fully bought in or they don't see a benefit to themselves, they'll sign the collab, but they won't work it, right? And you equally, the job doesn't start when you decide on the collab. The job starts after the ink is dried and you have to now deliver the revenue. And it takes a lot of nurture. It takes a lot of education. It's a whole new product, and you're educating a whole new market on that product and the value that it brings. The challenge is that it's not your market. So you have to depend on the other person to educate their market about what you're doing. Right. So you want to make sure that all of these things are things you consider when you establish that collab. The collab itself, obviously you want to make sure that the avatar you're serving, you're adding enough value so that avatar wants to buy the product. It could be a great idea. Right. But if they don't want to buy it, if it doesn't fit hit home for them, they're not going to buy it. They're going to just say, oh, wow, that's a really cool idea, but they're not going to spend money on it. Right. So factoring, obviously the most obvious thing would be making sure you're giving value and getting a result for a client with a collab that makes sense, with somebody who's willing to work the collab and somebody who has an audience that will buy the collab. Those are the things to consider when you're looking at the collab.
For sure. And one thing that you mentioned that a lot of times people don't think about so much, or maybe they don't give enough weight to it, is you said when the ink is signed. You said when the ink is dried, meaning there is paperwork involved in these collaborations. And because a lot of times people do things all willy-nilly, and I would caution, I think sometimes some testing is okay to see, is this even viable? But once I believe that, once it's viable, now we need to put some paperwork in place. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? And I know you're not, a tax strategist or things like that, but from your personal experience.
Yeah, there are different ways to structure your collab, right? In terms of who brings in the revenue, whether you're selling the product and somebody else is delivering it, or you're marketing it as a joint venture. There are different ways to do it. What I will say is this. if you treat your collab casually, it'll bring you casual money. If you treat it seriously, it'll bring you serious money. So if you're just doing a collab and partnering with somebody and putting out a post or putting out something and that's it, you're gonna get some traction, but it's not gonna be a long-term viable opportunity for you. It's not going to deliver the kind of results it could deliver if you put the proper emphasis and weight behind it. So if you take the time, you want to make sure you have a joint venture agreement that has an opportunity for you to exit and your partner to exit. You want to make sure that the agreement encompasses the rules of the game. So what you're going to sell, what you're not allowed to do, what they're going to do, and what they're not allowed to do. Equally as important in the collab is defining the things that you should not be doing and the things that will destroy the collab. Because the last thing you want to do is have, for example, your collab partner selling your joint venture, but somebody referring them to somebody else for a service that you could provide, right? Or referring them out if they don't like your service. So you want to make sure that there are certain things. It's just like any other agreement.
It's a relationship, right? It's a communication. Like with any relationship, communication is key.
And you want to ask the tough questions up front. You don't want to like gloss them over or ignore them. What happens if this doesn't work out? What happens if we want to exit? What's the period we should notify each other? If there's an issue, how do we resolve it? Like those are the things you want to go in on the collab with, and not just the good, cool stuff, right? The fun marketing and branding stuff.
The fun marketing. Yeah, that is the fun stuff. Yes, for sure. This is so good. And so what are some different types, or let me, before I kind of shift gears here, would you say anything is different for more established businesses? So I kind of prefaced that question with, if they were just starting out, maybe they had a hybrid, would your advice or recommendations be any different if they are already established? Maybe they're already at the 50K mark, right? Yeah.
There are differences, because for a more established company, you have a lot more risk.
That was 50K per month. For clarification.
Yes, you have a lot more things you have to protect, right? Your audience, your revenue, your brand. And so you do have a little bit more legalese you want to develop into that partnership. Similarly, you also want to have a lot more vetting up front to make sure that the person you're getting into bed with is the person you want to be there with. And there isn't any, stories or reputation damage or anything on that person's side. So you do have a little bit more work to do if you are established, but don't let it be a barrier to doing good business, right? You make sure that you are checking your T's, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, and you make sure that you are going into a relationship with somebody you want to be in a long-term relationship with. Always see these things as long-term, not short-term. Yeah. You want to make sure that you're going in for the long-term. But once you've done that and you've vetted this person, this is the person you want to be in a collab with, then you want to make sure you're protecting yourself and the other person for that matter.
Sure.
Because you don't want somebody coming in and just pitching your network and sucking your clients out or giving them a bad taste or experience because your collab didn't cover it. So yes, for a more established company, a more established founder, you do want to make sure that you're a little bit more upfront on the vetting, and then on the back end, you protect yourself a little bit more rigorously.
Yes, I love that. And so collaborations in terms of what is something that people can do right now. I say people, nurse practitioners can do right now in terms of really increasing their visibility online. I
would say that join communities. You want to make sure that you're participating in a community where you're getting to know people. Business now is not transactional, it's relational. People do business with people that they like. And if you want to be that person, then you should be in a community. You should be offering value freely. You should be giving of yourself so people understand your thought process, your zone of genius. And you want to make sure that, once you've established a relationship, that you're making sure that whatever you offer, whatever you promote, whatever you serve is of value to the other person. If it's just pushing a sale or pushing awareness or pushing yourself out to somebody, they're going to get turned off and they're going to talk to other people about, oh, I didn't really like that experience. And so you're going to lose customers even before you knew you had them. So give value, give freely, be part of a community, build the know, like, and trust factor. And that will give you the visibility, and not just the visibility, it would allow people to have insight into why you are as great as you are, as great as you say you are. And they'll see it for themselves, they'll experience it, they'll recommend you, they'll refer you. That's the surefire way to increase visibility. And then you can ask for things like, hey, I'd like to guest on your podcast, or I'd like to, do a collab article with you, or, I think that we have two products that are similar. Maybe we can do a guest speaking gig one time at each other's spaces. is. So once you've built the trust, once you build the relationship, then you can expose yourself and increase your visibility by finding collaborators and communities.
Yeah, love that. And I just want to interject and just add, this does not necessarily have to be a very long process. It can, but nowadays, with the beauty of social media, people are always on social media, and you can very quickly really increase that know, like, and trust factor fairly quickly, depending on the environment. I'll never forget, this was at the very beginning of my business several years ago. I was asked to speak inside of a really small group. And I just really want to share this, because it's not always about the groups that have 20,000 and 50,000, 100,000 people in the group. This was a really small Facebook group with 20 people. And she asked me to come and speak, and I on health and wellness and holistic health, and I did. And from that came other opportunities for me to speak literally the next week, and then that ended up turning into a quarterly thing. But just from that first time speaking in that group of 20 people, someone ended up joining my Facebook group, ended up coming into my ecosystem, and ended up being a client. She originally signed on as a client for 6 months, Ty, but she ended up renewing several times. We ended up working together for 2 years. And that was from one time being in a Facebook group, teaching in a Facebook group. And so I share that because for those listening, if it feels like, oh my God, this is going to be a long process, sometimes it will be, and that's okay, but it's not always. You're going to have people, you will have opportunities that I would say pop immediately. Some are going to take a little bit longer, and then some of them will be longer term, but it's all worth it. All of them are worth it.
100%. Two things you mentioned there that are really important, Charisse, is that the size of the group, right? Sometimes smaller groups have quality people. Bigger groups might have 20,000, but they may only have a 10% show up rate, right? Yeah. So you don't want to exclude any group. You want to go where people invite you, because the other thing it does is you're practicing your pitch, you're sharing your brand with an audience, and you never know who else has a podcast in there or who else has an invitation for you. And you can do the lily pad effect and jump from place to place to place. And that does the job of building your brand, which establishes your credibility. I guarantee you that client that you looked at didn't just say, all right, here's my money, but they actually went to your profile. They maybe read up on you a little bit more. They got to understand who they were, who were they dealing with. So it equally is as important for you to build your profile when nobody's looking, right?
Absolutely.
Don't wait for you to have a stage or a speaking gig. Make sure you're constantly posting on a regular basis. People are seeing your thought process, your methodology, how you do business, your look, your feel. They're experiencing that from your profile, and they're going to go through and scroll and establish that relationship with you. So you better have that on there even after that one speech that you make.
Absolutely. So good. Yeah. And we talked about adding value in different Facebook groups. So you talked about Facebook groups, one way to increase your visibility. 2, you talked about podcast guesting, another way to increase your visibility. 3rd, you talked about even collaborating in terms of like doing exchanging audiences, if you will. And that could be on a Facebook Live, that could be Instagram Live, it could be any type of live where you guys are kind of, I like to call it cross-pollinating. So you gave really 3 or potentially 4 really great ways that people can start right now with increasing their visibility. I would love to hear your perspective, and I know your perspective, but I would love for you to share your perspective on, someone's probably listening to this thinking, well, if I share all this information freely, as Ty mentioned, then why would they want to work with me? If I'm giving it all away, why would they want to work with me? What would be the entice them to want to work with me? So you want to speak to that a little bit, Ty?
Absolutely. Listen, the reality is, there are a ton of coaches out there. There are a ton of nurses out there. There are a ton of the service you provide out there. It just takes 2 Google searches and a few searches on Facebook or Instagram. But guess what? When people make a choice and a decision to buy your product, they're not making a decision just to buy the thing that you offer. They're making a decision to work with you. To the know, like, and trust factor, that like factor in there, that trust factor is not, they're not trusting the thing you're doing, they're trusting you. Correct. They're not liking just the thing you're doing, they're liking the way you do it. So never get jaunted or dismayed by the fact that, oh my gosh, I can't share, I got to keep everything. I learned this when I was in tech. When I was in tech, everybody used to say, as we were fundraising, don't tell anybody your idea. Don't tell anybody your idea. That was crap.
Mm-hmm.
Really, truly tell everybody your idea, because it's going to do two things. One, it's going to give people the opportunity to give you feedback, critical feedback,
Yes.
and incorporate in your idea. And two, it's going to tell somebody, hey, I'm interested. They may have somebody in their network to refer me to.
Absolutely.
They may have somebody. So you want to share your information. You want to tell the whole world as loud as you can and as far as you can why you're the genius that you are and what it means for you to do what you're doing. You want people to know that, because that's the thing they're going to connect to. The why you're doing it, the how you do it, the why you're different from your other people doing it. It's out there already. Nobody's inventing anything new. You're
Right.
not breaking the mold. Trust
Right.
me.
Yes.
A lot of people are already doing what you're doing,
Right.
but nobody can do it the way you can.
That's
And
what
you have to stress on.
that's it. I love that. I always say no one can do what you can do the way you can do it. And you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And another thing that you just said a second ago, and I've heard this time and time again, and it just relates to your tech experience. I learned this when I was in direct sales, and it was if you have an idea and I have an idea, then we both just have one idea each. But if you share your idea and I share my idea, now we have two ideas, and you can implement if you find value in that idea, it can mesh with your idea. You can implement it in a totally different way than I would implement it. And so going back to no one can do what you can do the way you can do it.
I would argue that you have three ideas. So you have an idea, I have an idea.
I agree.
Together, you have three ideas.
Three ideas. You're so right. I love that. You are so right. So this has been so good. This has been so good in terms of really understanding the why behind the importance of increasing your visibility. We even talked about ways to increase your visibility. Talked about various ways various ways you can collaborate, not just in the typical or traditional ways, but even some out of the box ways. So thank you for sharing that. So this has been, again, tremendously insightful. Ty, anything else you want to add to just to kind of tie it all up in a bow about the importance of increasing your visibility through collaboration?
Yeah, listen, you can choose to go it on your own. You can do everything the way you want to do it. You build it out and you'll have success. Or you can bring in other people, right? We all grew up with the understanding two heads are better than one. The more collabs you do, the better it is for you. It's a huge opportunity. Don't feel like you have to control and possess and everything's not going to be this. Like, let go and bring in as many people as possible. But do it intelligently, with your eyes open.
Right.
Just don't do Vike. But once you have accepted that it's better to grow as a community instead of on your own as an island, you will be more successful.
So true, so true. And that as you were sharing that, Ty, you immediately made me think of the Advanced Innovation Society, right? Because that's what it's all about. So for those who are not familiar with it, would you share a little bit what is it? What is it, and how does it work, and the brilliance behind it all? Because it really is a brilliant community.
Yeah, so the Advanced Innovation Society is our answer to people who don't want to necessarily be in a directional coaching program, but want to be surrounded by other entrepreneurs who are forging ahead and working as a community to grow and build each other. It's akin to having a personal board of directors. It's akin to having a sounding board. It's a group of people you can go to that are equally vested in your growth as they are in theirs. Why? Because it's a brotherhood. Right? You have to be of a certain avatar to enter the Advanced Innovation Society. Once you're in there, everybody meets on a regular basis with each other, giving and trading ideas on strategy and ways to grow their business and ways to increase their visibility. So as a community, we're bringing like-minded folks together. We're putting them in a space and we're giving them the support, resources, tools, and content to grow and scale. That's all we do. We don't teach you anything. We give you the people who can be the resource you need to grow.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is power in community.
Mm-hmm.
There is power in community, and there's power in proximity.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, you have to be a certain avatar to even be in the community. So now you have this proximity to so many other people that have connections to so many other resources and people and all the things. So this is I love the idea, the concept of Advanced Innovation Society. Always like the word throw. Yeah. So I'll be sure to have the team put that down below in the show notes for those of you who are interested in that. And before we wrap up, Ty, are you up for a little rapid fire?
Okay.
All right. Okay. So here we go. Who was your childhood celebrity crush, Ty?
Oh my gosh. My childhood celebrity crush. So my childhood was in Trinidad, right? It wasn't I didn't have the same figures, I guess, that you guys had here. I don't know that I had a particular celebrity crush. Our until I was about 12 or 13, we had local TV,
Okay.
not foreign cable or cable TV the way you guys have it now. And that does not mean I'm old.
You are not old.
I am not old. But
You are
I
seasoned. No, I'm just kidding.
seasoned.
Not even.
Yeah, I'm gonna defer on the childhood celebrity crush and say I don't recall having one.
Okay.
But I think that they would probably be the same demure, that same amazing person that they were back then. I don't know.
So somebody that we don't know, basically.
Somebody that we don't know.
Unless you grew up in Trinidad.
Unless you go, yes.
Oh my gosh. All right, cool. So who was one person who you would trade places with for a day?
I this is generic. I would trade places with somebody like the Apple CEO or the Amazon CEO, just to see what it would be like to be in the decision-making seat of a large multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Multi-billion corporation.
I just, to me, like, yeah, I've been in startup world. I've been in sort of this founder world for a long time, and you're always close to the start, close to the front line. It's not a lot of layers, but I think it's to be in a company where there's a stratosphere of layers and you don't necessarily see the front line, but still have to make decisions on it. I would love to see what that dynamic would look like. So a little bit of a dirty answer, but
no, I love that. I love that. That's pretty awesome.
CEO.
That sounds exciting, in fact. So, what is one of your guilty pleasures?
Jenny's brown butter ice cream.
Jenny's brown butter ice cream?
Yes, I discovered it. I discovered it in 2019, and every once in a while I'll go buy it from the supermarket and hide it in the back of the refrigerator and eat a spoon every month.
Wow, that's discipline.
No, it's rich, but it's so good. It's so good. But yeah, no, I love Jenny's brown butter ice cream. Has little chunks of like sugar in there.
Sounds so good. I'm gonna check that out. All right, tell us one of the biggest risk you've ever taken.
I think leaving my corporate job, and going all in on a tech startup that didn't work out. We raised the money, we went in, we paid $100,000, we went into an accelerator, we did all the work, we graduated, and the accelerator didn't do their job of putting the right investors in the room. So we didn't have people to pitch to, but we hung our hats on that. And, we didn't know better. So we could have been wiser about diversifying the outcome and not putting all our eggs in that basket. We did. The good news is, it didn't work out. We pivoted quickly, landed on our feet, and continue to do so. But yeah, I think giving up the security of a corporate job and then going all in, it made me believe that I can do anything. I was Superman.
That is so true. I love that. I resonate with that so much because you actually don't know what all you can do until you take a leap, and you're like, oh, okay. And this is really great, Ty. How did you recover from, oh my gosh, I did step out to do something different. It did not. We had a little bit of success, but it really didn't turn out the way I expected it to. How did you then pick yourself up to keep going?
Well, I'm the kind of person where if I have people and I had a staff, I had a team of people that were accountable to me, right? I can't lay in bed for 2 days and not figure out how they're going to eat their feed their family and eat their food. So for me, it's like I can wallow afterwards, but today I have to put money in the bank. There's no way around it. Yeah. So it was about looking at every contact the same way I said. Your contacts are your collaborators, looking at every contact and then pitching, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And we actually bounced. It was 14 days. We bounced from what we were doing to becoming product developers for an app. Mind you, we never did that before. But
Sweet.
We became product developers for an app and spent 10 months developing an app. And I was able not just to cover the salaries of the entire team, but we were able to start putting away money for a future investment.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So many lessons in just what you said there. All righty, let's see. What's something you wish you were better at?
So there's a stark difference between sales and business development, and people don't know this. Sales is the ability to sell somebody cold, or like at least make the sale within one transaction. Business development is the nurture and strategic relationship that you build over time. Social selling is akin to business development in the online world, but ultimately, I think I'm masterful at business development, starting a relationship and over time adding enough value to where I can, give that person exactly what they need. And they don't feel like it's a sale. They feel like it's, the extension of a relationship. I think put in a position where I have to make a sale, I'm not, I would never describe myself as a salesperson.
Yeah.
It's the thing that's lowest on my wake up in the morning and want to do list.
Yeah.
But as entrepreneurs, we all have to do things we don't want to do in the initial start and go round, until we get to a point where we can hand it off to somebody who's an expert at it.
That's right. And I love that you made that distinction. And I would venture to say, because of the nature of nurses and nurse practitioners, we a lot of times we shy away from sales per se, but we know all businesses must have sales in order to be a business. Otherwise, it's a hobby, an expensive hobby, right? But I would venture to say that we are better at that nurturing piece of it because we're natural nurturers, just inherent in who we are as people. That's why we chose the career, nursing, being a nurse and nurse practitioner. And so, but I think that gives like so much freedom to even realize there's a difference between the two, and you don't have to, and I would even argue sales is cool. I actually like sales, but I love the business development piece of it. Right. And so just knowing that it doesn't have to be a one and done, and knowing that you can lean into something that comes to you very naturally, the nurturing piece of it, in a very, in a, I don't want to say strategic way, but in a way that makes sense, so that it does lead to the sale. Because again, you must have sales to have a business. Let's just be clear.
Yeah. Once you know the distinction too, you can build your pipeline that way, right? So
Agreed.
it really does require you to like front load the people you want to nurture over time and know that they're going to drop at different points further on down the road. And you just keep that cadence, that cycle. You just have to know your numbers. You have to be more strategic with how you do it. And you have to make sure that, as you're doing it, you're obviously generating the cash flow and the investment that you need to keep the business going. So yes, there's a distinction. Do what you feel comfortable with and where you're most like, but you can structure it in a way that will give you the outcome you need.
Yeah, so great, so great. All right, last but not least, actually, I have two last ones. Who would you like to be stranded on a deserted island with?
Who would I like to be stranded on a deserted island with? I think that it would have to be somebody who is a lot more handy than I am, because I learned this past weekend while I was on vacation that I don't know a lot of things about the traditional workings of things like, I didn't know you put salt in a dishwasher. You put salt in a dishwasher. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Why would one put salt in a dishwasher?
One puts salt in a dishwasher so that it softens the hard water that ends up washing the dishes, or something to that effect. That's what I was told.
Okay.
And then there are flaps for the bottom of the door so that it can prevent bugs from coming in. I didn't know they build these things. So definitely somebody who has this kind of practical, real world knowledge that is not me. That's
I am with you on that, because I didn't know any of that, Ty. And I would need someone who could build a boat or something. Someone that's handy with their hands.
Somebody who knows the kind of wood necessary to build a boat, because you put a raft together and then it sinks. It's like, did you know that there was a different kind of wood? That's the person.
Exactly. That's important. It's important to know. All right. Last question before we wrap up. Tell us something that we don't know about you.
Ooh. I love to travel, you know that, but
I know that, yeah.
I've been to, what you may not know, so I've been to 65 countries in the world so far.
Wow.
And my goal is to get to 100 by the time I get to the big 50.
Okay. All right, man. So let's get it. You're actually really close. 65. That's exciting. Yeah. Do you have a plan? I'm sure you have.
I have continents. I have continents and destinations. I don't have the cities just yet.
Okay. Oh, that's going to be fascinating. Well, I'll definitely stay glued to your timeline and watch all of it unfold as you hit that 100th country. That's pretty exciting. Yes. So, yes. Well, Ty, thank you so much for sharing your time, your energy, your insight, your wisdom, all the things. This has been a really incredible episode. And I know that the listeners will be able to take away quite a bit from this episode. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And you guys, will see you again next time for another episode of the Sharice Williams Show. Until then, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.